I'm over excited because tonight we have an exceptional guest. Her name is Kim Roberts, and she is, as you have seen on some of those commercials, she is an executive. But not only is she an executive, she is a woman who loves and fears God, and she loves her family. What an anomaly in this day and age, right? And this day and age, it's something that you rarely get to see. But she is with us tonight, and I am so excited that she's here. First of all, I want to say that having somebody like a Kim Roberts in your life is something to be held, because let me tell you, this woman is absolutely stunning. Absolutely stunning. She's intelligent, she's smart, she's witty. And I just think you guys are going to really enjoy her. So I'm going to go ahead and bring her on in. And I want you guys to take the time and think of some really good questions. You know, we are saying specifically, hello, Black Spring with Autumn. How are you? We are, we've already talked about the fact that, right, she's a conservative. Not only is she a conservative, but she's a libertarian. And so we need to get down to the bottom and find out exactly what that means, right? Because for most Black people, all we know about is the Republican and the Democratic Party. And then when we hear anybody else talking sense, we think, oh my gosh, they're trying to be this, or they're trying to be that, or they're trying to be white, or they're trying to be this or that. They don't understand. No, I just like ish and stuff to be right. That's all. So she's from California. We're going to get right into it. I want to find out everything that she wants to share with us. But here we go, folks. Her name is Kim Roberts. She is an executive from California. She is my guest, and I hope that each and every one of you guys get a lot of info and type a bunch of stuff in the chat. All right, Kim. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Got me.
Wonderful.
How are you?
I am outstanding, and I'm so excited. Let me tell you, I cannot believe how many people have really chimed in to everything that we had being posted out there about you. I mean, just immediately people picked up and just, interested. So let's just get right into it. As time goes on, people are going to be coming into the chat. More folks will definitely do that. But what I like to do is I like to make sure that I'm talking to the replay folks. So I try to get right in there immediately and start it out. So let's just go. Tell us who you are. Where are you from? Who are you, woman?
Well, I don't know that I can live up to that whole thing that you just did, because I'm a mom. I'm a family woman. I live in LA. I'm from here originally. I've lived many places in my adult world because of my work. And, I'm just a working mom with responsibilities. I am an executive in the beauty industry. And I also do some other things. I do consulting work, and I do blogging, and, some different things. I do have a life outside of my politics. And gosh, I'm from a family of Kennedy Democrats, generations. So my politics and my beliefs are something that, I came that I've done on my own, not necessarily what I was trained to do, but I have a lovely big family here in California, and I'm really excited to be talking to you.
Well, I'm so glad that you're here. Now, I do want to ask you, you said Los Angeles, you said California. I was raised there. Obviously, I'm a Southerner. I was raised in Carson, California.
Okay, right on.
But look, before that, I lived in the jungle.
Mm-hmm.
So I was, a little bit.
I was right. Like, I grew up in South Central, so I know the jungle. I lived a short amount of time in my childhood in Inglewood, so I know the South Bay and I know Carson. And I didn't know that about you. And so it's really cool, to talk to you, like, instead of just on social media.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I know we have a lot in common.
You know what, I was about to say that because you mentioned the beauty, and that was one of the things that was after we found out that we had some of the same ideals. That was another thing that we found out about one another. And that's what drew me to you. And it's been several years. It's not been a 1 or 2 year junket. No, it's been at least.
Totally. And,
At
and
least,
we've never talked about anything other than that. I'm
no.
sorry. I'm on my son's laptop because
Mhm.
my iPad wasn't good with your software. So I'm still trying to get
Mhm.
myself together here.
Well,
Um,
listen, I want to ask a question because I have some notes.
okay. Well, let's start like from the beginning so we're not all over the place. Okay.
That's exactly what I want to do. I know you just
Okay.
mentioned your childhood, and that's great. That's wonderful.
Hmm.
What you mentioned to me was that you were from a historically Democratic, Kennedy Democrat family, type
Yeah.
of family. Um, in 2015, when you decided to walk away, what prompted that? Why did you do that?
Gosh, let me back up
Take
before
your
we go
time.
there
Yes,
because
take your
I
time.
also want to share because a little bit more about my background might even answer that question. I've been a student of history and a student of Western civilization and a student of geopolitics, and I studied journalism in college. So I have always, since I was 12 years old, been very interested in what was happening in the world. And, growing up in South Central LA was, I'm Black and I still own my Black card. But I've lived many places, around across the country and around the world because of my work. And so I also, have considered myself to be a global citizen before like being a global citizen was like a thing. Um, my grandparents used to use our home when I was a little kid as a polling place and were very active in getting Black people to vote and registering Black people to vote. And I actually have memories of my grandparents and my aunts and uncles teaching people to read so that they could read the ballot and know how to vote in our home. So I guess that kind of advocacy has just always been a part of, of who I am. As an adult, I have been very active in party politics, mostly starting in 2008 with Obama. We were all really, really excited about Obama. And so I started volunteering for his campaign in 2008. And I lived in Texas at that time. And so there wasn't really one thing that caused me to kind of, change my politics. It was really just kind of a gradual learning and a connecting of the dots, so to speak. I will say that, you know, I have always had conservative values, only I didn't know it. And I think that you may hear Black people talk about that. And I want you to jump in and ask questions like, and then stop me because I know I could just go on and on. But, my values were shaped like most of our values. I mean, we went to church.
Mhm.
We believed in traditional families, not solely or necessarily only traditional families, but, we're
Right.
here by virtue of being a part of a traditional family. And I'm also part of a
Absolutely.
nuclear family as well.
Mhm.
Education was really stressed
Mhm.
in our generation as being a way out of the hood and out of
Mhm.
poverty. I learned about hard work and responsibility and civic pride. And so these are actually conservative values that I think that most of us as Black people have, but we've never really been forced to put a label on them
Mhm.
until I would say more recently. So
Mhm.
patriotism and love of country is also something that is part of who I have always been. I come from also 2 generations of military and people who have served. So saying you love the country, saying the Pledge of Allegiance, like that's just never been an issue and nothing that I ever thought was one day going to be put into a box of conservatism. It's just, I've always been a proud American, especially traveling around the world and seeing how much we are loved around the world and how blessed we are to live in this country.
Mhm. Mhm.
Never really had to make excuses for that.
Yeah.
So really my journey into how all of that translates into leaving the Democrat Party really started in 2008 when I started volunteering for Obama. And
now that's what I really want to hone in on. Did something pivotal happen? I mean, what happened where the eyes just got open and you was like, you know what? I don't agree with that, and that. So maybe, tell us about that.
I will tell you that I think, there's the saying that, once you see it, you can't unsee it. And, starting in 2008 is when the pieces kind of came together for me, is when I noticed that we started to talk more about race, and we started to talk more about, all these little isms, and for the first time in my life, and I'm 51, turning 52 soon. So this was 2008, my son was a baby. It was a long time ago. That's when I started really having to put myself in little boxes and quantify all of these values that I always had that were totally fine to have and still be a Democrat. And so, my antennas went up, and I never really, the party started shifting around that time to more of a hard left, where I felt like me and other people that I knew that were, very proud Democrats were having to accept things that maybe we didn't fully believe in necessarily in order to be, part of the club. For example, I've always been pro-choice. And I think, what decisions people make in their own bedroom and four walls and with their doctor is like their thing. But I kept feeling that that was being challenged as the issue became so political and, kept moving farther and farther left. It went from it being like, okay to have an abortion at 14 weeks to okay to have an abortion at 20 weeks. And then, and now today we're talking about people being okay to have an abortion up to the time of birth. Like, so, and I'm not an abortion fanatic. I'm just using that as an example of one.
Well, first of all, let me hold on. Let me stop you for a second, because I want to let you know here, you don't even have to give any, precursors to anything, because for me,
but I just want you to know that that's not my issue of choice, but it's one thing that I think that people can relate to.
Yes.
So I just began to feel like things, like the party was moving far left, and it was moving away without me, because I still had, what my core values were. The next few years after 2008 was kind of a transition where, my eyes were kind of open, and, being involved in campaigns, and even as a volunteer, I had media training. So there was one thing that happened to me in 2012 when I was volunteering. And at that time, because I moved a lot, I was living in Oakland, California, and working in a campaign office, and was given a little small book of talking points in case, somebody ever came into the office, the press, and wanted to ask a question. I mean, it was very specific what you had to say and who to direct them to, etc. And as I flipped through that book of talking points, like a lot of them weren't really completely honest. And some of I felt like my values were being challenged, being asked to submit to these talking points. And, I did my job. It wasn't like a huge thing, but it's just something that I never really forgot. So I would say that it was just a journey. Like, once you start to see things, you can't unsee them. And, I am all about what's right. I am not a party person. But I feel like by the time that I re-registered as a Libertarian in 2015, that the party had left me, that I hadn't necessarily left the party. And I'm the same person that I always was. But if you want to force me, and I feel the Democrat Party kind of did, force me to make choices about my values, I'm going to do me. And I'm not necessarily going to go along with a platform or a program that I don't agree with. And I just looked up and found that had happened almost at the speed of light. I mean, between 2008 and the second election, which was 2012, I was completely all in, but my eyes were open. And by the time we approached the end of that second term for a president that was beloved to me, I just felt like I didn't even know who the Democrat Party was anymore. They certainly didn't represent me.
Well, let me ask you something. You mentioned something that was important, and that was that they pretty much left you because you had never changed. You were always pretty much the same.
And I'm still
true. And you're, you know what I mean? And so,
Mm-hmm.
what did you notice? Because I noticed for myself when I became more vocal about what I believed and how I felt about what I believed, I began to be shunned. I lost a lot of friends.
Mm-hmm.
When you made that decision to just, let them go on about their business, there's two questions. The first one is, how did you cope with the loss, and did you suffer any loss of friends? And then go ahead and answer that first, because you perked right up.
Yes. So yes and yes. In the beginning, I think that people just, kind of thought, oh, she's on one or whatever, that it was like a temporary thing. But at the, when Trump came onto the scene, that is where I think that the divide that we had been prepared for, I believe, the years prior, because this moment that we're in today didn't just start in 2016. We
Not
had
at
been
all.
prepped and primed and prepared for this divide.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
if you go back, you could go back even further than 2008, but just for context, if you look at where we were 2008 to 2016, that's when issues of race started to really rear their ugly head again, where the divide between, what you believed in, was like a big thing. And so, I started to, I think my friends and my family just kind of thought, because I've always been into politics and I've always been very vocal about, my values and what I believe. It was a subtle thing, and a subtle shunning. But now it's like a huge thing. So by the time 2016 came, I think that it's when it got, really big, because let's think about the things. I mean, because now we've got this big divide just within our culture, our community, between Black people. And when I grew up, we didn't have that. And, as a matter of fact, growing up in LA, we grew up in Black communities, but our friends were Hispanic, our friends were Persian, our friends were Japanese. It is the social experiment for the melting pot. And so, I have my beliefs about whether or not, we really do have racial issues in a place like this. I'm not saying that they don't exist. I mean, I've had, certainly had my experiences with racial issues, but I think the thing that is the problem now is that I know what I used to think about conservatives and Republicans when I was a Democrat.
And what was that?
And what was that? Now people are thinking those things about me. For example, I used to think that conservatives and Republicans were the same. And I know now that is not true. I used to think that all conservatives were right-wing religious fanatics. Okay. One thing to be Christian. Another thing to be a white.
Look, I'm paralyzed. I'm not gonna try to say it.
Right-wing, religious fanatic. I used to think that Republican Party and conservatives was the ideology and the party of racism. Okay. And I used to think that Blacks who voted Republican were somehow betraying their race. I mean, these are like a lot of things that a lot of Democrats think, and they won't admit it. Now they may, but back in the day, we wouldn't admit it because it was a thing. It was a thing that was real.
We were called Uncle Tom. Remember Uncle Tom?
I used to always think also, one last thing that I thought was that liberal policies were to help people, and that liberals and the Democrats were the true charitable people, almost like God's chosen people. Like, these were just things that I grew up knowing as a fact. And so I would say that today, because of the divide, I have a lot of conservative friends that are Black. I have a lot of Republican friends that are Black, even within just the last few years. But my Democrat friends, they now think of me the way that I used to think about Republicans and conservatives, but yet none of that defines me.
Absolutely not. I do have a question, and that's a very good point that you made, that none of it defines you. Here is, here's the thing. I believe that we as a culture have always been a conservative group of individuals. If you look way back, I mean, we used to hide the loved one who got pregnant, and she didn't go have no abortion. We would take her out of the neighborhood and she would go live with ain't such and such in the down south woods or someplace else. So it was no abortion for us. We never ever, that was something that was shunned in our community. And I believe that right now that the Black community is being used for everything that is opposite God. Everything that is opposite conservative.
I'm blown away to hear you say these things, because this is our first conversation about any of this. We've only ever talked about, beauty and social media and different things, but you're speaking the truth. You're speaking my truth, and I appreciate it.
Well, I'm glad, because, and you know what? And here's the deal. I truly and honestly believe that there's a lot more people that are like us. But because there have been some in the media that have taken it to a whole nother level, that it causes a lot of dissension, right?
Put that on your list, because I have a few things to say about media.
Okay. It's that there are a lot of people that have added a lot of dissension and that make us look totally different than what we are. Like we just said, putting the nail in this thing here, and that is that the majority of us were raised very conservative. We were not, we got talked about if we tried to be fast. We couldn't go out and be fast. Sexuality was something that, yes, we did. But I wasn't fast.
But for me, you're completely right about that. I was also very smart, and my family, I was the smart one. But,
okay. So what
you're right about values.
We had those values, and I think that's the confusing part, is that once you sit somebody down and you say, okay, listen, you're not answering my calls anymore, you're not my friend anymore.
Right.
Now that we're face to face, that we bumped into each other here at the Starbucks, let me just ask you a couple of questions. Did you believe in abortion when you were a young child? What was your mindset? What was your family's process of thought? What was it? And then they give you the answer.
Well, and then you say, and all of these things were slippery slopes, meaning that, listen, I am not a virtue signaler. That's just not where I come from, and I and I don't know if we talked about this, but I used to work for Mac, and I worked down south.
And so did I.
And that's where I think we kind of, I remembered you, or you remembered me, or something. And I'll never forget, I hired my first all-Black staff at Dillard's in Little Rock. And it was like an exciting thing. It was a super exciting thing for me, because I love Black. And I love, that I had never had that experience before, where
it was based on demographics too.
Well, but I'm from LA, so that was not, and also in prestige beauty, that is kind of like not normal. But
there you go.
My point is that it wasn't until, let me back up a little bit, back to what we were saying. I believe that if I had not, I remember now. Back during that time, math was about all ages, all races, all sexes. Not only did we not discriminate, but it was in our DNA as a company. And I worked for them for 12 years and was very, very proud to carry that torch and to carry that message. And I've gotten into a few faces of a few white, powerful men where I had to remind them, listen, you want to do business with us, and this is what we're about. And they don't like hearing that, number one. They also didn't like hearing it in places like Little Rock and Memphis, Tennessee, from a Black woman. And I have always stood up for what's right. I don't care who you sleep with. I don't care. I believe in the nuclear family, because that's how I got here. And that's how my children got here. And I hope that's how my grandkids will get here.
Thanks, sister.
But the point that I'm making is, if you don't, that's completely fine with me. Completely fine. However, I don't want to live in a country that says, if you don't accept disruption of the nuclear family, then you can't be one of us. Then you're going to be an ism, or you're going to be an outsider. I've never had a problem, and I have encouraged and loved many people with alternative lifestyles as an example. But I chose what I chose because it's what I believe, and it's what my family taught me, and it's what Western civilization has taught us. It is our way of life that is our chosen way of life. Not to say that you can't choose another, but you can't do that at my demise, meaning that I cannot exist, and that my beliefs cannot exist or coexist with yours. Because when did that start, and when did that happen? And so again, that's a perfect example of a choice that I would probably still be a Democrat if it was okay to be a Democrat and be a moderate with some conservative values, like many of us have always had.
Absolutely. I appreciate the way that you said that. Now, being in California, and I know exactly what you mean, because being that it was a melting pot, we were automatically grown. We were raised to automatically appreciate others.
Sure.
We never led with our being a heterosexual female. We never entered the room saying, "Hi, I'm a heterosexual female. How are you?"
Right.
So for us, when we knew someone in the beauty industry, okay, because you and I both working for Mac and other companies, we know that there are a myriad of awesome people that have unbelievable backgrounds, that have unbelievable hearts. They're great people. They're sweethearts. We love them. But we've never really focused on what they do in the bedroom.
No, and who cares about those things?
And who cares about those things? We love the person, and we pray for them just like we pray for anybody else. But with that said, I have always had a problem with the fact that we have turned into a country that has legislated people's personal choices. And then every commercial, every show, every movie or TV show that you get into, you're having to have this other thing put in front of you, when I don't even like, male and female situations in a television program. So that's the first piece.
Yeah.
And then coming from California, we have had diverse people and diverse backgrounds and diverse friends. So that's a good thing that we have that in common. I do want to get on to something, because right now we're at the 27-minute mark. I want to talk about California, and I want to talk about what your governor is on. And I'm going to just say it. I have made a couple of videos about him. I have made a couple of videos about that mayor out there. And I'm going to tell you something. These acts that they are doing are absolutely treasonous. I don't know where you stand on them, but I'm going to tell you, they are. Somebody need to get a rope. That's all I know. These are some pretty treasonous things. I'm going to give you a second to sort of gather all of that up. But I do want to talk about all the fires, and I'm going to give you the floor. And here's some things I'm going to roll on the floor for you to go ahead on and pick up at your discretion. But we need to talk about Mr. Okay, and let's go ahead on and put it right out there. Okay, Mr. is Miss Pelosi's nephew.
Yes.
For those of y'all who didn't know, that's who he is. Okay, that's the first thing. And then I definitely want to talk about this abundance of fires that you guys are having, because to me, they're more on purpose than they are by accident. And I will step away from this and let you have that.
So, this is my home, and I love it. And I've lived away for many, many years and been back for 10 years. And we'll probably move away again soon because of just the untenable nature of the politics here. And it's really unfortunate. I happen to live in fire country. So I sit outside, and I have the mountains are right in front of me as I'm looking out my office window. In the front of my house, in the back, I watch, coyotes and roadrunners and people run all around, and or animals, all kinds of wildlife. So I live in fire country. So I'm very aware of what's going on here. And it is, climate change. We can talk about that as an issue, but it isn't about climate change. The governor gets up there and he makes an excuse for his ineptitudes in policy and blames it on climate change. And the far left, they just eat it up. And it's so untrue. You know, we have not had controlled burns here to the degree that we should have for a healthy ecology in a long time. I believe that it's about money. I wonder where is the money to do these controlled burns, and the organizations that actually implement the controlled burns, have laid off and have a fraction of the people, able to do these controlled burns. We really don't do them anymore. Mm-hmm. So I feel like sometimes we're matchsticks here, mm-hmm. where one fire could, wipe out an entire community like Paradise. And we could get into some other, wow. more interesting things on another conversation. But nonetheless, I don't care what your political affiliation is. If you want a healthy environment, there are just certain things that you have to do, and those certain things cost money. And when you are living in a state that I believe has been held hostage by not just, it's Democrat, like this has been in the works for a long time, where there's no checks and balances here. So whatever the governor says, whatever our city assemblies say, is a done deal, because there's nobody to check them. There's nobody to fight back. Being a Republican here in the legislature is non-existent. But I say that to say this, something ain't right with that man. And you can be a Democrat and you can call that out. And guess what? A lot of Democrats are calling that out. He's not doing right by the people. He is not doing the will of the people. He's a crook. If you only watch the media, you will think that that's the majority of people that live here. And yeah, I think, some of us got kind of casual, and they've done snuck a few things in on us. When they get a little bit of power, they have seized on it very quickly, especially since Trump's become president, because he's lowering the boom on the dark money. He's lowering the boom on the anarchy. He's lowering the boom. And I don't care if you like Trump or not. You can look objectively at what's happening, or you can't. And if you can't, that's kind of, I'm sorry for you.
Good deal.
But, yeah. But I think that you're going to see more people doing exactly what I did today in 2020, mm-hmm. leaving the party and leaving the state, because it is untenable under this leadership. And unless he's recalled, which COVID kind of, I think, is making that more challenging, he's got 4 more years to go. And I don't care what happens in this next presidential election, 4 more years of this kind of government will completely do the state completely in. And it's, it's on matchsticks as it is.
It absolutely is.
But people got his number, let me promise you. You won't see that on CNN, but people here have his number.
Good.
What do we do about it?
Yeah, and that's exactly it. What can you do about it? And so for me, standing, so many miles and states away, I look at my former home and I just weep sometimes. I'm like, what on the planet? Who is allowing this guy or these people to bring in such heinous, barbaric, unbelievable just these laws? Where are the people?
Abuses of power. This is the belly of the beast when it comes to abuses of power. And this is actually another thing, back to why I left the party in the first place, back in, when I did, was I came back here from living in another state and saw it clearly for the first time almost in my life. And, navigating within it was unnatural to me at that point. But the abuses of power that I have seen here as a constituent, also as a very loyal volunteer to a party that was beloved to me, it just opened the door for me and I just walked out.
There was nothing else you needed to do. Put on your slippers and glide on through the door. Right. I respect every single thing that you have just said. I know that for me, the economy there in California, it breaks my heart. I still have my dad there. I still have family. I still got, my brothers there. One of the brothers that I'm very close to is still there. And it breaks my heart. And it breaks my heart because a lot of people only know the Hollywood part of California, right? They don't know when we used to have the Pike, back, back in the day, and when we used to go to the Pike for, Saturdays after we went to church or whatever. Just those little small things that we did, the Dairy Queen that was down the street from my high school, Banning High School, and all of that stuff. A lot of people don't think about those little things. They just think about the big California. But see, that little California that I'm describing right now has now been overrun with a lot of stuff, from overcrowding. And what I had a problem with, and I'm going to say this on this live because it just has to be said. I had a problem with seeing my Black brothers and sisters in California getting on the soapboxes for people who, if they had committed the exact same crimes as these people did, these folks would have been tossed in jail. And here, let me qualify that. If you consider how California decided to become a sanctuary state, and you commit a crime and you're of a certain race, and once you commit that crime, okay, you can go hang out and hide. And I got a little upset when I found people who look like us getting on that bandwagon. Yes, go ahead, do it. And I always say, wait a minute now. If Man and Pookie Nim down there, a Crip, if a Crip or one of them Bloods did something wrong, they ain't gonna be able to hide nowhere. They ain't gonna be able to go nowhere, right?
And you know what? No. You're just saying it how it is, and let me add to that and say
yes,
that
do.
My grandparents actually, before they bought their home in a Jewish neighborhood, they lived in a Mexican barrio with Mexicans.
Excellent.
I love all people.
There you go.
But what California has done, and cities like Los Angeles have done, and even cities in states like Texas are trying to do, and please God, don't let them.
Well, a lot of Cali's went out there.
It's all about, they've created the divide so that we hate each other, and that we're all, it's like survival of the fittest. You know what? I want all people to be educated, all little children to be educated. But I have a problem if I'm paying $10,000 a year in taxes to live in a nice community, and my child is not learning anything because he is in a 70% English second language elementary school class, and the teacher says to me, "I'm sorry, your son's really smart, but I have 70% of the other kids in the class that don't speak English, so I have to help them extra." I want every kid. Don't make me make a choice, because I got one child. I love all children, and I advocate for all of them. But then if you do advocate for your child and what's right for you and your family and your tax dollars, suddenly you're a racist? Sorry, I'm not a racist. You know what I am? I'm about what's right and what's wrong. And it's wrong for the country to be doing what they're doing in terms of dividing us. It's wrong for us to allow it. But that whole thing with the open borders, it serves the political elite and their agendas. It does not serve the people. And it's okay to say that out loud.
Why not? It's the truth.
That's not a racist statement. That's a statement of fact. And so now we have all these isms, not just in California, but across the country now.
Everywhere.
There are all these isms now that if you actually speak your truth, that you're somehow in this prison of only two ideas, where your truth is they're assuming that it's at somebody else's expense. That's completely bizarre and unreal. And the fact that we allow that, it's our fault.
It is our fault. And I do remember several years ago in California where they had passed some law, and I forgot which one, because there's been so many colorful ones there. And I remember saying, hey, in a minute, you guys, we're going to paint ourselves into a corner, right? Everything is given to us. See, here's the whole dirty truth. A lot of the stuff that's going on is steeped in manipulation, and manipulation is as witchcraft. So when you take those two components and you click them together, and then you know how to deal with the psychology or the psychological mindset behind a person, and you study people long enough, like most of these people have, then you know how to fashion the words and how to make it fit to where if you don't agree with this, you're going to feel guilty, right? And because you're going to feel guilty, you're just going to hush up and sit back and believe that, well, maybe somebody's going to say something to fix it. But
and you're completely right, and that gets into like the whole thing with the media, and so history. I've been a student of history since I was 12 years old. I remember, I don't know how many people remember the first book they read with no pictures. The first book I ever read with no pictures was the autobiography of Sojourner Truth. Loved her. And you know what?
Your grandmother gave that book to you. Your grandmother.
She didn't, but she reminded me of my great grandmother.
Okay, great grandmother.
That book. And it led to my love for history and reading about like really strong women, abolitionist women. And, you know, I didn't know there was so much history that I've come to find out after taking responsibility for my own relearning some things.
Okay.
That, you know, I had to reteach myself because there's so many things that were left out in history. So it's really shameful. Like I have my son, he's in 10th grade and he's taking Western civilization. He's not supposed to take US history until next year in 11th grade, which blows my mind. But my point is that, you know, that history has been rewritten for us. So we don't have any idea the truth about where we come from. And one example, I was talking to a friend of mine because he posted something from a website. It's a very left-wing website called heavy.com. And it spoke about the first Black members of Congress after Reconstruction. But the whole article, I clicked on it because I don't usually read heavy.com, but I read everything. Clicked on it and I went through the whole entire article, and it was amazing about these amazing men that most people, you know, that learned about the Civil War and Reconstruction, they didn't even know about these Black men. However, not one mention that they were Republican, not one. And to me, that's a lie by omission. To me, that's fostering ignorance. And there are so many stories like that in history. And then when you get into you add that to what's happening in the media. And I don't think that a lot of people really recognize, and I'm sure that you know, that all of the media that we watch, television, news, and that we listen to, it's owned by 6 corporations globally. That means that there are 6 men, probably 6 white men, that are deciding what it is that we get to learn about and what it is that we get to see and how we are entertained and how all of that works in our mind to maybe accept or sleep on some very important things. Then you get into, and I'm talking like there's an octopus with all these different arms on it.
I mean, because the tentacles are many.
We talk about the politics of it. You know, like I watched this morning, Dianne Feinstein, and trust me, I do believe on some levels that, you know, that Democrats and Republicans are, you know, 2 sides of the same coin.
That's exactly right.
But I don't have a problem calling out who's responsible for what, no matter what party you're in. But nonetheless, I see Dianne Feinstein, and she gives her opening statement today because Comey is on the hot seat, sort of, at the hearing, the Senate hearing. And she's lying out of her like dentures. I mean, completely lying. But what a lot of people don't understand is that she is shrouded and protected being in Congress. She can say anything that she wants. Absolutely. And she is protected. And it is an abuse because that is not what that protection was designed for. Congress abuses it daily. It's Article 1. I think Section 6.
Absolutely.
That protects them. And to watch that abuse is mind-blowing. And there are people, or the same with, what's his name? The FBI director.
The former Comey?
Yes.
Comey? Yes.
No.
The former?
Director Wray.
Oh, Ray. Okay,
the
good. Yes,
he lied
okay.
in his testimony last week.
They all do.
He said that, and I'm making a point here. He said that the greatest risk to our voting election, integrity is white racist, groups like Nazis and like white, but I don't think he even named them out. He minimized some that he should have named, but that was a lie. But guess what? He's on the record, thank the Lord. But they can lie about anything that they want, at least our Congress people can. But people are watching this and they're thinking it's the truth. And so you couple that with miseducation of the Negro, and that is a book.
Come on now.
And you couple that with the manipulation of our minds in the media, and then you have people that are watching in real time right now what's happening in politics and doesn't know the truth from a lie. And we're in some pretty big trouble as a culture. And as a humanity. And so I will say this in this little section that I wanted to speak about, because I wanted to share this. That's why I'm a libertarian. And I'm not an overly religious person. I believe in God and I know who Jesus is. And, he has dominion over my life.
Okay.
Which is also a gradual, learning over the course of becoming 50 years old. But I have to say that if you don't know God right now,
come on,
you better, and whatever your God is,
bring it home. Bring it on home. Tell the truth. It doesn't have
to be my God, but
tell the truth.
Right now, you're in big trouble.
Yes, you are. You're completely tailed out right now. You're completely tailed out.
And if you don't know that we are in a war it's not politics where it's Democrat versus Republican, it's good versus evil. And if you can't call out the evil that you see, even when it's within your own party, you're part of the problem.
And I think you're absolutely right. We're coming up on the 47-minute mark, and this is my guest. I'm so ecstatic to have none other than Kim Roberts here with me tonight. She is exceptional. She's given us a lot of insight on some of the things that she's experienced, lived through. She's told us about her history. And doggone it, I'm excited to talk to somebody else that talks like I do. I have a very good colleague in the chat right now, and that is Nancy Morgan Hart from Headline with a Voice. I want to give respect where it is due and say hello to you, kind lady. Thank you for being here. Thank you for everybody else in the chat for being here as well. We're talking about conservatism, and we're talking about being a libertarian, and we're talking about a lot of things. But there are so many misnomers out there as it relates to our culture. And I believe that it's because of the media that she just explained that has skewed things and turned it around. And then because historically, a lot of us in the past, maybe, I don't know about now, have not really gone out and done any research of our own, because we would have been taking care of the household, taking care of somebody else's household,
and working. And you know what? Those days, I value and appreciate those days of the past, because there was a time when you could come home from work and while you're cooking your dinner, flip on the news and get caught up on the events of the day. Those days are over.
They're over.
And that's and when I made that little comment about my spirituality and my belief in God, that's why I'm a libertarian, because I believe that at the end of the day, if you can tune down the noise and be pragmatic and not emotional, the answers that we seek to everything that's ailing us today in this country can be found in the Bible.
Amen.
Can be found in the founding documents for this country. Period.
Kim,
end of story. And listen, I don't care you can be a Muslim, you can be a Buddhist, you can be whatever you want to be. It doesn't matter, because if you are able to conceptualize the founding of a country and the values of that country, you don't have to be a Christian to be in harmony with that. I think that this country's done a really good job separating church and state, and our founders did that for us. I just think that if we go back to the beginning, if we go back to the Bible, and we go back as our guide, and we go back to the documents that the founding fathers left behind for us when they created this great country, all of the answers are right there. End of story.
Well, I agree with that. And I truly have to say that based on everything Kim just said, we see therein lies the problem, is the fact that there is the difference between the good and the evil that's here in the United States.
And the evil is to separate us from those things that we just talked about.
And that is exactly right.
It's working, isn't it?
That's exact. Well, it's working. Here's what I want to say, and I want to take a second to say this because I know that there are not a lot of people that are addressing this particular topic that look like you and I. I think it's becoming more popular, but I've got to say this, and I'm going to take my time and say it because I want everybody who sees this on the replay to hear me well. The Black Lives Matter movement ain't us. I'm going to say that. That's not us, okay? Believing that Black Lives Matter is a okay philosophy. But when I look at that particular organization, it is steeped in every single thing that we have covered and talked about tonight. We have got to, especially as people who believe in God, we have got to realize that it's not any of these three things. It is two things, good and evil. And if it ain't of God, then it's evil. And if it's evil, you got to get down to the core of that thing and you got to unearth that evil and figure out exactly what it is. And at the base of that, you will see witchcraft. That is what that is. So let me just say this. Because I got to say this because I've had so many people that are, well, what about Black Lives Matter? What about this? What about this and that? Those are three self-proclaimed witches. They said it, I didn't. Okay,
girl.
They said it, I didn't.
They did say it, and that's what I was going to tell you. They did say it. When this whole Black Lives Matter thing first started, the first thing before I'm going to put a black thing on Instagram or a thing around my face on Facebook, or even,
come on now,
I'm going to see who are these people, right?
Yes.
And I read exactly what they said about themselves, and they have every right to exist.
There you go.
However, they are not who they say they are in their own, description of themselves. They are trained Marxists. And if you know what Marxism is, we can't get into that on this little short time we have left. Well, but they are trained Marxists.
A lot of us here do. If you want to say it, do it.
Marxism is the antithesis of everything that is against Western civilization, against anything having to do with God. And so they are using our people. But yet they've got us so programmed because the words are nice. Black lives do matter, but we've been manipulated into thinking that it means something that it's not. But whose fault is that? Because we all have access to this. And you could go right on their website and see who they are. The same thing with the debate last night. You could go and see the Rude Boys or whoever that was. You could go see who they are.
Well, the Proud Boys.
You can go and you can see who Antifa is. And you can allow our politicians to deflect and say, oh, yeah, they're nobody. But Antifa is steeped in history of racism globally. They are the brown shirts. They are.
There you go. There you go.
I didn't create this. I'm not a conspiracy theory. I am a student. I'm a pragmatic person that will pick up, my phone and Google something in a heartbeat. But I also will go to other places knowing that Google is part of the issue. But
oh my God.
So I'm all about what you're saying. Black Lives Matter. This whole thing has really broken my heart and has really created a divide. One last really quick thing on that. A really good friend of mine that I've been professional colleagues and good friends with for 20 years sent an email I belong to an organization that he founded and a professional organization. And it basically said, hey, if you're not on board with Black Lives Matter, you're the problem. And I'm happy to refund your annual fee to belong to this organization. White guy. And you know what? It broke my heart because he does not have a clue what he's doing and who he's alienating. And you know what? I don't need to belong so badly that I will sell my soul to that devil. I just don't.
Kim, I have to say something because you just hit and struck on something that I have got to say, that I want white people to stop feeling the type of guilt that these witches are impressing upon them. If you got guilt for something that you did to your mama nam, your daddy nam, your husband, your wife, then boo-boo do you. Feel the guilt. Y'all work that out over there in the corner. But the type
For
of
sure.
guilt that these people are putting on you, that ain't nothing to me. I don't need you to kneel to me. I only need you to kneel to your God, right? You kneel to God. I don't need you to kneel to me. I don't need you to buy my milk, buy my lunch. If you want to bless me because we know one another, hey, that's one thing. You got me this time, I got you the next time. But these people are feeling this guilt. And because this rhetoric is so rampant, going back to the point you made earlier about media, they are beginning to grasp on anything they can, because what is happening is these people are playing on heartstrings, and they are playing on the emotions of the listener. And the listener, being that they have good nature, like the cat probably had a good nature when you met him, he doesn't know. He truly honestly thinks he's doing a good thing, but he don't know. He don't know he's rocking with witches and warlocks.
He's gay,
Mm-hmm.
and he loves Black people.
Mm-hmm.
And he wants to belong. He wants to be a part of the mainstream. He doesn't realize he already is. And he doesn't have to embrace Marxism and leftism in order to belong and be accepted. He is loved. What the hell? But I'm not going to do that. And I'm not. And again, it's that, you see what I'm talking about? That
I do see
that forcing me out. He forced me out, and he didn't do it with me in mind.
Right.
But he's going to realize that we haven't talked in a few years, and he may wonder why. And I'll be happy to tell him. But you know what they say, Captain Sailor. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not doing that anymore.
Well, I appreciate your candor in that, because for me, I'm saying, you know what, let's just be honest. Every last one of us got something else in us. I mean, I have the majority of my lineage, and I'm just making this clear, is Native American. That's the majority of my lineage that I can trace. And then obviously I have an Irish great grandfather, 100% Irish, looked like a tall tree, just pale, a white man. Here's my point. The things that have gone on that we are upset about are the things that they want to use as triggers. But the true thing that we need to be upset about is them abortion rates within our community, is the joblessness, is the drug addiction. It's the
How about the child sex trafficking?
Okay, the child sex trafficking. Y'all don't know where half of our Black kids go? Don't y'all want to know where they go?
Remember the milk cartons?
Okay.
Remember we would pour and the kids be on the back of the milk carton? This has been going on for a long time.
It's been going on for a long time. We used to sit up there in the kitchen
and it is being revealed. It is being revealed. And I do believe that is going to be the issue that brings us back together. I
pray that it is, because
it's just my gift of discernment. I don't know that for any factual reason. It's just my gift. And I believe that the child sex trafficking is going to be the issue that conservatives and Republicans and liberals and progressives and all of us are going to come together for.
Because the spirit of discernment, as you just mentioned, is so high right now. I'm going to just say this one thing. For those people who are here right now, who understand when we say the spirit of discernment, that means you already on the hookup. You already know where we're coming from. That's letter A. I need for you guys to understand something. If something seems too good to be true, it more than likely is. That's A. B, we are generally the ones who side-eye stuff, but we ain't been side-eyeing a lot of things lately. We've been accepting things because it's so different. Listen, everything that is vile, vulgar, wrong, and opposite of God, our culture has allowed to ride in on the coattail of the civil rights movement, so that it shames everybody into making these demonstrative and demonic changes. Listen, I'm gonna say this because this is my show, so that if they cancel me, they go ahead and do their thing, baby. Okay, do your thing, baby. Here's the deal. We have more Black children who are being trafficked than people know. We have more Black mothers that are selling their children, and I know of it in Georgia, than people know. For whatever the reason, I'm going to give you what's good, right? We have more Black people who are doing things that they have no clue what it is that's going on. And right now, today, we have equated and we have hitched our wagons to a star of a demonic spaceship.
Thoughtlessly. And we need to be present thoughtlessly.
Because we want so desperately to be. And that's our problem. Always wanting to be like everybody else instead of standing back and looking and saying, no, I'm cool with me being this way or that way.
Well, remember Cuties and Netflix, right? Okay. And so, but the perfect example. So I was talking to some of my conservative girlfriends about this whole Cuties Netflix thing. And we ain't had Netflix in my house in a very long time.
Hello.
And so then she asked me about a week later, oh, did you see this movie on Netflix? I'm like, no. And she was like, Netflix? Didn't we just, like, what is your end game? Because if I was you with what you know, why are you still subscribing to Netflix and watching Netflix and supporting that evil?
Bingo.
What is your end game? And she said, I didn't even think of it that way. Well, why not? And that's what it goes back to what I said in the very beginning, personal responsibility. Can we take responsibility and action the information that we know? Or do we dismiss it because it's inconvenient?
We dismiss it because it's inconvenient and because we're going to lose some friends and because people are going to say we are Uncle Tom. They're going to call us an Oreo.
And you sound like a real Uncle Tom there, Ms. Lockhart.
You know what I'm saying? But you know what? Here. I'm an educated Uncle Tom, right? Because I'm straight up Sambo.
Well, I want to tell you one last thing really quick. I've done a lot of research on a number of things we've talked about and been down a few rabbit holes of information because as somebody with a background in journalism, doing research is kind of just my thing. Absolutely. And I will tell you, I want to come back and talk to you about some of the things we talked about about the media and some of the things about this child sex trafficking. I would love to.
I want to make that a priority. I want to make that a priority. Folks that follow the channel, you already know that some of my earlier videos were dealing with me coming out of the cocoon and coming out and being able to honestly say that I was raped and molested and, all these things that happened to me as a child. My mother being in the music industry in California, it led a door open to a lot of things. So for me, what she's going to talk about when we are coming back, because we're right now at the hour mark. And so it's time for us to go ahead and shut this one down. But what I want to say is we need to have this conversation. This is the uncomfortableness that Black folk don't like to deal with. This is the stuff that we don't know about. This is the stuff that a lot of us may, one or two or three, that we have to whisper, did you know about that? Yeah. You're like, oh my God, girl, I'm so glad.
MSNBC, ABC, CBS, Fox, CNN, anything mainstream legacy, you know nothing about it. And if you know nothing about it, you are in no position to have a discussion about it. You know nothing about it. They don't want us to know. You have to be in search of your own information through finding smart ladies like Miss Lockhart and a lot of other independent sources.
And like Miss Roberts.
News.
I appreciate all of you guys there in the chat. I'm going to say hello to a couple of people out there. I do see CSFL champion, Mr. Ronnie Man, how are you? And DC, the Purple Diva, how are you? Maynard, I want to tell you thank you so very much for joining us tonight. Obviously, my mentor, my friend, Headlines with a Voice, Nancy Morgan Hart. I want to thank each and every one of you guys for sharing this out, for telling people about us, for coming on tonight. We are going to do this again. We're at the hour mark. Yeah, we're at the hour mark. And you know what? I have a whole bunch of notes, and she and I just took off naturally. We didn't even get into half of the stuff.
Well, let's do it again.
Well, we have to do it again. Let's do it again really soon. Let's do it again really soon. We're gonna. Yeah, so we need to, because to me, I think that these are the things. Listen, people need to hear us saying what we want instead of people getting on TV telling us what they're gonna give us and what they think of us, and everything is Everything is opposite the family. Everything is opposite the man. Everything is beat up the man and kick the family. Everything is, oh, no, the nuclear family is not a man and a woman. We're going to get rid of that. We're going to make it
And
two
you know
women.
what?
We're going to
And
make it
all
two
of that
men.
is fine, but we can
Not at my
coexist
expense.
together. We can coexist, and it's not fine at the demise of my traditional life.
And I don't want to have to pay for something that you decide.
And it's evil forces that are making us have to make those choices.
And that's what I wanted to say. I wanted to say that, you know what? The United States has become the greatest Molech society on the face of this earth. We sacrifice more children to the god Molech than anybody else does on the face of the planet. We have more people that are sacrificing the children, and then only God knows the level of depravity of the demonic forces that are. Okay, only God knows. Now we can pray, but we certainly have to start to tell our brothers and sisters it's time to wake up. It's time to wake up.
Though, we have to not be afraid to call it out.
We gotta call it out. That's what we're telling you guys. We're telling you guys in the chat, call it out. When you call that thing out, the devil gotta go. He can't just hang out and chill. It doesn't work like that. We have to start calling the stuff out. We have to see it, and we have to be bold. We have to trust God because he is going to protect us. Say what it is. We don't need people jumping in on the civil rights movement and changing the whole architecture of it altogether. Every beam, every curtain, every drape, every cornerstone, they've taken everything out of it, everything that it was meant to be, and we stood around there and allowed them to do it. Everything that's vile, everything that's disgusting, y'all throw it on us and we stupid enough to run with it. I'm sorry. We need to knock it off. And when you see it, call it out. When you see a commercial that you know is not godly, write that company. You spending your money, write them. I write enough people and call enough people. I know they're like, oh Lord, here she come again. But listen, you guys, I'm going to give the last 2 minutes to Miss Roberts, because after that, we're going to go ahead and close up here. But I want to tell you before we do that, this is awesome. We're going to do this again. There's so much that I do not think enough people listen, you guys, we're doing this because for me, we're tired of just being in the back talking amongst ourselves.
No, we don't have a voice. We don't have a voice in media. We don't have a voice.
Candace Owens don't speak for me, y'all. If I could get a hold of
that. And I had somebody call me that the other day, and I thought, this person, if they knew anything about me, wouldn't equate me to her. I have no problem with her. She does her thing. I believe a lot of the things that she says make sense.
Yes,
but
they make sense.
I'm not necessarily a fan. And that it's putting all people of a certain out of your not knowing how diverse people that have diverse trains of thought are. It's that prison of two ideas, that if you are a conservative or a Republican or not a Democrat, you think like this and you are this, or you're that. There's so much gray area and so much richness in between, and we are not acknowledging that. And it's really, really unfortunate.
I love it. I love it, Kim. I love it. Yeah. Listen, but we're going to get out. I want you to tell us, and because a lot of people are going to want to know that don't know what a libertarian is. I want you to take maybe 30 seconds and kick that to us. And then I want you to go ahead and take us on out. And we're going to, after that, I'll come back in and we'll say goodbye. But go ahead. You have the last few minutes to discuss anything you'd like. You got 2 minutes. And no, wait a minute. Hold up. Wait a minute. Hold up. Wait a minute. What the heck was that last night?
Oh, you know what? My spirit can't handle it. It can't. It was really a very unfortunate thing. And you can't just open it up when we have 2 minutes.
I know, that's what I was about to say. But I'm going to say this right here. We all that love our country, okay? We all know that we don't like the fact that we got a two-party system. We all know that. But here's what we know what we got to do. That is, we got to bind together and we got to get ourselves together and have a mindset of one. Because if we don't, we're going to be in a big, even bigger bit of trouble than we are right now, right?
I suggest everyone play the long game. And everybody play the long game. We have this election coming up and it's important. And, you know, back to the, and libertarianism kind of ties into that a little bit. I mean, I want, if anybody's interested, please do some research to find out what libertarians are about. But, you know, I vote libertarian because I vote for and support policies that reflect the rights that God gave me that are affirmed in the Constitution. And that's why I'm libertarian.
Very good.
And so when I'm watching, so it doesn't matter what I watch. I could watch that show last night. I didn't say it.
It's all good.
With all my disappointment, there were some things you have to be able to analyze it, and there were some things that were very clear. That we can vote with our egos, or we can do what we feel is the right thing. We can just want to win and be on the winning team, and we can vote with our emotions and our anger, or we can ask ourselves, you know, do we care about this? What do we care about? Do we care about this country? And do we care about our way of life? Do we want to be socialists? Do we want to be trained our kids to be trained Marxists in school? Like, do we want those things? And that's not like extreme. That's real.
That's real.
Do we want to go into this like globalist one world, you know, rabbit hole? And so I just think that we have to ask the right questions and do our own due diligence and process things, not through our ego, but through reading things and through good investigative work. And also we have to play the long game that, you know, you can take your loss in 2020. Like I took my loss with George Bush. I took my loss and decided that I didn't want that to happen to me again. And I decided that what I wanted the future to look like for my kids depended on what I did. So I went out and I helped people register to vote. And I voted. I volunteered for some amazing campaigns. I played the long game, and I suggest everyone do that because 2020 is going to come and go. Trump is going to come and go.
Oh, Lord.
Come and go. But what about 2024? What about 2028? And so play the long game and don't be short-sighted.
I agree with you. I really do believe that there was some, there was a little bit of politicking in the politic just recently. And some of the politicking in the politics is, when you real
good. At the end of our time together, but let's talk about, I really would like to talk about let the dust settle. There's going to be another debate coming up. I think it's the 15th of October, and let's talk then.
Okay. I'm on. Okay. All right. We're going to do this once a week up until the election. That's what I'm calling it right now. We're just going to do this once a week up to the election, and we're going to have our opinions, and we're going to talk about it. And we're going to get some stuff hammered down. Wait,
Pence and Kamala, they talk on their
next Tuesday.
Next week. I don't think I can handle it. I think I'm going to sit that one out.
Let me say this.
I was so jacked up yesterday that I just don't think I can watch that one.
Let me tell you something. That was a doggone train wreck last night. For those of y'all who can feel me, that was a train wreck. If I was in his corner, I would have told this cat, look here, I need you to shut up and let this man talk because you already know cognitively you got him. So don't do nothing. Just be quiet. Don't argue.
Listen, I also get kind of tired of people trying to recreate Trump. He is.
It ain't gonna happen. It ain't gonna happen.
He is who he is, and expecting him to be different is the definition of insanity. But just remember this, Ian. I remember things, and I'm grateful for that. Remember the first debate he had
with Hillary? Oh,
Hillary?
yes.
It was the same. It was he just hit a wall. And
you
everybody
so
thought it was
right.
a big deal, and it was over. And he came out the next two, killed it.
Well, I hope he get a suit or at least press the one he put on this time because I couldn't take it. Look,
this man is trying to do his job. God bless him. He's trying to do his job every day and campaign. He's
tired. He's tired.
I don't know. Every day I see him on television. I wonder, am I seeing the last of him? Like seriously, it's just. I feel whether I agree with him or don't agree with him on policy issues and whether I want to vote for him or not is beside the point. He is our president.
That's right.
And we've spent the last 4 years not getting to know who he is and what kind of leader he is, other than sound bites from the media. The mantra of Trump, the art of his deal, you've wasted 4 years.
He really honestly has. And I have to agree with you. You guys, I agree with everything she just said.
Knowledgeable.
He is. And I think that, listen, we're going to have to talk about this offline, and then we're going to have to bring some points together so that we can bring these things poignantly to people so they can hear exactly where we're coming from, because I agree with everything Kim just said. I oh my God, my head is going to explode. It's so juicy. Listen, you guys, we're coming up on 1 hour and 15 minutes.
I'm sorry.
No, don't be. It's just that the time went by so fast. I really wish that we had more time. But listen, we're going to do this again, you guys. I just proclaimed it and we just put it out there, and that's what we're going to do, because we really honestly feel like this is something that's needed. It is so needed for us to come to the table and just talk about these things that people are just letting go right over their head. No one asks questions anymore. Nobody asks why. They just take the blue pill, swallow it, and then they go on about their business. And then once the metamorphosis has happened, they grow a tail, 2 donkey ears, and gigantic fangs. Then they want to know what happened and who did it to them, right?
What happened? So, that's right.
What happened? What they want to know what happened. And so that's the reason why we are so glad that you guys have joined us tonight. Kim, do you have anything to say? Because I'm going to close it out. Say what you need to say.
I just want to thank you so much for this cathartic conversation. I think that I'm just a mom, a working mom, a taxpayer that has, that has some strong opinions and thoughts based. Not all opinions are equal. I will say that, but we're all entitled to them. And I just appreciate being able to talk to someone that you don't even have to agree with me, but you do on some things, and I'm grateful for that. But we need to hear our own voices. We need to talk to the guy next door who is maybe sitting there suffering in silence because he doesn't have any support. Maybe that guy is going to watch your podcast and podcasts like these. So thankful for you to have me.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you guys, all of you in the chat. The time right now, we're coming up on 1 hour and 18 seconds is where we're headed, if all things being equal. And I just want to thank each and every person for coming in this evening. Please share this out with your friends so that if they get the opportunity, once this is published, they can go on ahead and watch it as well. This is Felicia Lockhart, and my guest this evening has been Kim Roberts, a refreshing young lady. And we're going to do this again really soon. So we appreciate you. We thank you so much. And there's really nothing else I have to say, but you guys, kapak and Godspeed. We'll talk soon.
Thank you so much.